Hello and welcome to the Source Property Podcast. I'm Chris Kirkwood and joining me today is Source Marketing Manager John Darcy. Hi John.
Hi Chris, how are you?
Yeah, I'm very good, thank you very much. Is this your first ever podcast?
No, funny enough, it's not. It's my second ever podcast.
Do I want to ask about your first ever podcast, or is that not a good idea?
You can do, yeah. So it was on 1990s wrestling figures. It was a podcast I was helping out with a couple of mates. So yeah, I'm hoping this one will be a bit more professional, to be honest with you.
Well, hopefully you'll have a little bit more information about this and a bit more knowledge and experience.
Yeah.
Or am I barking up the wrong tree there?
No, actually, I think the wrestling stuff I'm quite knowledgeable on. It would be good if I could get a reference in there about wrestling and property, but it might be a struggle, to be honest with you.
Let's see if you can. So there you go, a little insight into our marketing manager and his background and his interests. He's our marketing manager, and the reason that we've asked him in today is because we want to look at how you can actively and effectively market yourself and your business when you're working in property. This is something that, let's split this out into three things. You've got marketing properties, you've got marketing yourself, and you've got marketing your business. Three different areas that you might go about in very, very different ways. Today we're going to focus on effectively marketing yourself and marketing your business, because I think the property one is a massive topic that we can cover potentially on another podcast, so keep a lookout for that. First of all, though, I think first question that we're going to start off with is, the question that you should always start with when you're looking at big topics is why. All right, why would people market themselves and market their business other than just marketing properties if they want to sell properties, or if they're selling properties that they're trading on, or selling properties that they've created in a block and they want to sell the individual ones? Why are people marketing themselves and their business as well as that?
I think for me, in not just with property, but with any sort of industry really, I think I'm always a believer that people buy people. I think, any kind of brands I trust or I kind of follow, and I think it's probably come on a lot more with, stuff like celebrity culture and whatnot. But for me, and you've probably got your own biases, don't get me wrong, but I prefer people who I can kind of, trust, or, if I walk in somewhere and I'm having a conversation with someone and, they're a little bit dull, or, without kind of sounding too harsh, or,
Present company accepted though,
yeah,
right?
Present company accepted, but for me, I buy people, and I think, if especially within the property industry, I think that is a massive kind of relationship building industry, as most are, but, definitely in property, there's a lot of trust that kind of has to go into that, and I think, for me, you need to kind of market yourself on, who are you, what are you about. I'm not just saying kind of, what are your interests, do I support this team and whatnot. It's a lot more about that. I think, some of the things that I've kind of noticed since obviously I've been working at Sourced is, and what kind of interested me most is some of the stories behind the kind of franchisees. We've got, a massive network of franchisees, and the ones I remember are the ones who've got a bit of a story. And that story may not be relevant to property or whatnot, or how many deals they've sold or whatnot. It's who they are and what they're about. And that for me, again, that's why it's important to have the, why you should be marketing yourself. You want to stand out. I think the worst kind of thing you could be is almost forgettable.
So to keep it dead simple, to be memorable.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Don't be beige. Don't be someone you go in thinking, I'm not really too sure what their name is.
Okay, so here's a question for you. What if I think I'm a bit boring?
What if you think you're a bit boring?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I might not be, but I might think I'm a bit boring. So when you're saying don't be beige and be somebody that is memorable, I might be thinking, oh well, I need to start making up. I don't have any property stories, and these people are going to remember me for the property stories. So I'm going to have to make stuff up.
Well, I think in terms of when you're saying being boring, obviously, I think firstly, confidence is a big thing. I think misguided confidence is another. I think if you're sitting there thinking, what if I'm boring, probably the likelihood is the next time you have a conversation, you will end up being kind of boring. And I think this is another thing. I know obviously we're focusing on, marketing yourself and marketing your business. Don't try to force it. I think, if you're not, I'm probably not someone who can kind of walk in a room and everyone thinks, oh wow, this guy's really amazing, I want to kind of learn more about him. I think people get on with me, don't get me wrong. And
I agree, yeah.
Yeah, I think there's the certain part where you go, do you know what, he's a nice guy, but I wouldn't walk in a room and someone say, wow, what a guy. I think don't try to kind of force it. It's not there. Don't think, just by, when I say boring or kind of interesting, that doesn't mean you've got to kind of go in the room and, when you watch The Apprentice sometimes, years gone by, and you get that kind of overbearing person that walks in there, and their kind of way of being, memorable is being the loudest in the room. And quite often, they are memorable, but for all the kind of wrong reasons. And I think this is a question going back in terms of marketing yourself and marketing your business. I personally would think about that before you even started doing anything, because to me, you know, if your business is kind of what you want to push, then focus on marketing your business. You know, okay, you've got a brand, you've got something not to hide around, but you know, sometimes kind of put yourself out there as you can kind of be quite overwhelming if you don't want to put yourself as the face of it almost.
You've got two really big points there that I want to like give you a contradictory sort of opinion of. Because I agree with everything you've said, but I'd look at it in a slightly different slant. So the way that I would look at it would be, first of all, you've got to be authentic. You've got to be yourself, right? And when you're going to talk to people, when you're putting yourself out there, I completely agree with the confidence thing. If you're authentic and you go out and you talk to 10 people, then 6 out of those 10 people might want to have a second conversation with you. 4 out of the 10 people might think, you know what, I don't care for that person. I'm not really interested in what they're doing. I'm not really interested in what they stand for. Therefore, I'm not going to have a second conversation with them. But 6 of them do. And then what you do is you have that second conversation with those 6 people and you nurture that relationship. Because the aim of this is not to convert 100% of the conversations that you're having. The aim of this is to get yourself out there and build your network. And you're building your network by maintaining that relationship with those 6 people that you have got on with. So I would look at it that way.
Yeah. Just to kind of jump in there, Chris, I think, again, you can kind of go, I mean, a lot of the kind of principles of marketing in terms of what you want to be about can be the same regardless of industry, whether you're marketing yourself or marketing kind of a business. I think Chris touched on a point there in terms of audience. I think when you're kind of working in marketing, really, one of the things that you should always identify is who is almost your target audience. As Chris has just said there, you might be in a room with 10 people, for example, and 4 or 5 of those people, you can tell them the best story in the world, you can give them the best pitch or whatever it be, but they might be completely irrelevant to what you're trying to do. You know, if you're looking for example, big property deals and, you know, looking involved in big projects and developments, and then you're speaking to, you know, people who are not operating in that space, without sounding harsh, then to a point, why are you wasting your time kind of doing the big pitch to them? So as Chris has kind of said there, you know, if there's 6 of the 10 people or 6 of the 100 people, but they're the right audience for you, focus on those people, but first understand, you know, who they are and what you're looking from, because otherwise you'll just end up having, you know, 20, 30 conversations with people who are never going to kind of do anything for you.
Absolutely. It's all about being efficient. I completely agree. The second thing that you mentioned, oh man, I've just forgotten it. See, I had it right there all the way through what you were just talking through. See, it's gone straight away. Oh, I remember. Right. So the second thing that I was going to say was, some people will choose to market their business ahead of themselves. And, you know, if you are lacking a little bit in self-confidence, I totally understand why you would go down that route. But understand this, that yes, they'll see that marketing for your business, but essentially the longevity of the relationship that you build with them will be about you and not so much about that marketing. The marketing for the business that you do might get your foot in the door, but then it's all about you maintaining, nurturing and building that relationship. And testament to this, and this is actually a bit of luck. I just had a meeting with somebody that came into our office, and I've known this guy for 3 years. And after 8 months, we couldn't work together anymore because he went off to set up his own thing, and that was in direct competition with what I was using before in his old company. But 3 years later, we've stayed in touch. We send the occasional LinkedIn message. I've got to know him, and it doesn't really matter what he's gone into. I know that I want to have a conversation with that guy because I know where his experience is, and I know that I like the way that he operates. So I'm totally sold on his brand, on brand him, and now we've had that conversation, and it looks like we are going to be able to work together into the future. So this happens all the time. There's no use in thinking that it doesn't. You just have to accept it and then do your best to get on with it.
Yeah. As Chris has said as well, I think with a lot of stuff, and you know, with this, it may not be kind of instant success. I think, you know, I've probably been guilty of this all the way through kind of my career in marketing. Is you do a new campaign, you do all the kind of right things and the right tactics, the plan, the strategies and whatnot. You set it live, and then you're thinking, why nothing's happening.
Yeah.
And you know, it works the same the other way. You know, as Chris has just said, then somebody known for over 3 years, I think, you know, don't kind of be scared that it may not pay off, you know, right away. It could be 6, 12 months down the line that actually that one conversation that you had, but you know, you kept the kind of the wheels in motion, kept the conversations going, actually then pays off a lot further down the line. So it's not just there, you know, a quick transaction. It's, you know, what else can we kind of get from people?
So the why would be you're building your network, you're making yourself more likely to be successful in the future, as a rough snapshot.
Yes.
Anything you want to add to that?
Not really, no. I think, you know, for me, I think obviously one of the points you touched on was, you know, authenticity. I think that is a big thing, I think, and it just shouldn't be forgotten about. I think, you know, sometimes people can put on a bit of a persona, but for me, you know, in terms of why you should be marketing yourself, it's you know, it can reach so many rewards, not just financials as well, even, you know, again, the relationship building, the learning, the education. I think, especially in such a, you know, the property industry is massive and there's always lots going on, and, you know, I think even since I've obviously joined the business, I've learned, you know, a lot by just listening to people. And I think even if you just take that away as a, you know, speaking to people, you know, you may just take one little nugget from one conversation that might make a massive difference. So yeah, I think that there's just so many benefits to it.
So that's the why. Now on to the how. So what strategy should you be looking at when you're considering what you should be doing to market yourself and your business?
I think for me, and again, it's not kind of, I'm coming at it from a bit of a kind of a layman's kind of terms, really. I'm not looking in terms it's specific to property. I think you have to start out with a plan. I think for me is if because I mean we could sit here now and we say, right, what strategy should you do and what tactics should you do, and we could sit there and you probably, you know, if you're interested in this type of thing, you've probably gone on Google, or, you know, you've looked and gone, right, let's have a look at my social media, let's look at some kind of paid adverts, let's look at email marketing and direct mail, or whatever kind of other marketing tactics you want to be. But ultimately the foundation of that has to be a plan. So, right, you know, and you know, it may sound stupid, but if that's the very first thing you do and you do it well, you know, it will pay off.
So what do you mean a plan? What should people include in a plan?
Sit down and think, so, okay, what, you know, objectives, what am I looking to achieve? You know, what am I looking to get out of you know, my business? Or, you know, it like I said, if you look at it kind of being involved in, for example, property source, and then, you know, what does that look like? What does success look like to you? If, for example, you're looking at being involved in, you know, kind of getting into significant, you know, property developments, you know, I think a lot of we were kind of chatting the other day in terms of, you know, some of the reasons why people get into property, why some of the reasons why people become, you know, a kind of franchisee with us, and people will have different reasons. You know, for example, some want a better work-life balance, some just want, you know, the financial rewards, which, you know, is great. Some may want to kind of, you know, it's a challenge, some may want the training, etc., etc. And I think when you're starting out with that plan, whether it's, you know, 2, 3, 4, 5 objectives. Me personally, I think anything more than 3 start to get a little bit busy. But if you put 3 objectives and gone, right, this is what I want to achieve, this is what I'm looking to do, and that will help kind of guide you. And I'm not saying that's an exact science. I think with anything kind of I'm saying here, a lot of this is just opinion based and things that I've kind of found in the past. But one of the things that I've been, you know, found when you start to kind of move off the track, if you just start to kind of throw all the stuff at the wall and expect something to stick, if you have a plan and objectives and know what you're trying to do, for me, getting that right, you know, is critical. So otherwise, you just kind of become a bit of a busy fool. So
I'm going to share with you 2 of my marketing plans. The first marketing plan that I ever made when I came into property. Do you want to take a guess at it? First ever marketing plan.
Go on.
To have 2 conversations every single day about property.
Nice.
That was it. That was the marketing plan. Because what I was trying to do was, I had a network of people that had known me for, you know, many years, like that classic sort of 274 friends on Facebook sort of thing. And these people, most of whom I'd gone to school with, had no idea what I did. So when I came into the property space, I wanted to convert all of my network to know that I did property. So it was just to have 2 conversations every day about property, so that anybody that came into my world knew that I did property. And if they had a property problem, if they just wanted to talk about property because they own property themselves, they would come to me, and that would gradually turn my daily conversations around from the old business that I used to run that I sold into property. So that was my first ever marketing plan. Go on. No,
I think with that, I think, you know, when someone started to sit there and said, you know, what plan, what strategies, I think sometimes the word just plan and strategy can seem a little bit overwhelming. And I think, as Chris has just said there, on the surface, you might think to yourself, well, 2 conversations, that's your plan. It's a little bit like, but yeah, that's kind of all it needs to be. If something is as simple as that to kind of start off with, but actually all that does is focus you on that area, then why not do it? You know,
that's 2 leads a day.
Yeah. And that's it. And not even just obviously from the leads perspective, just the whole conversation around it, the point I mentioned before in terms of the learnings and the nuggets. I think you have to have a plan. And, you know, and again, one thing I would say is, to a point, you know, it has to be structured, but it can be fluid as well. You know, I'm sure to God when Chris was doing that, you know, his plan was 2 conversations a day. I'm sure at some stage, whether that's, 90 days in, 6 months in, whatever it be, he would review that. And I think, yes, have that plan. Yes, you should follow it. Don't just kind of be changing willy-nilly on different plans. But ultimately, you should be kind of reviewing that constantly to think, right, and especially if this is kind of your first steps into property, as most people say, there's probably going to be some failures along the way.
Yeah, absolutely. And I struggled with that plan. It seems really easy, but there were a couple of occasions where it was coming to the end of the day, and I had to have a conversation with somebody, and I was like sitting in the house on my own because I don't know, my wife was out doing something else, and I needed to have another conversation before that day was put to a close. So I'd like call my mum at 9 o'clock at night and start talking to her about property or property stuff that I'd seen. And she was like, what the hell are we talking about here?
I maybe to see you just want buttons yet.
But, that was my commitment to that plan because I didn't want to fail at it because I understood how important it was. Okay, so that's the first marketing plan that I ever made in property. The second plan that I'm going to share with you was a little bit further down the road. It was probably about 5 or 6 years later. And at that point, I'd started to offer training courses. These training courses were either over 1 or 2 days over a weekend in a conference room in a local hotel in Cheshire, and it was about £1,000 for a ticket. And I had sort of 10 seats available for a weekend's worth of training, and I needed to sell those tickets. So what I used to do then was I then put all of my time and effort into social media. At that time, Facebook was by far the best option for marketing yourself because of all the groups and the reach that you would have on your Facebook profile. And so I then moved over to post 3 times a day on Facebook with 2 live videos per week. And that was my sort of more evolved marketing plan when I was selling tickets for property courses.
So because again, when you were kind of sat down then and thinking about, I'm going to charge, I'm going to do 10 seats at £1,000 a pop, how did you kind of get to that point in terms of, how did you, because this is obviously another thing, in terms of, because we can say plan and we can say yes, how do you kind of quantify that? Because obviously, £1,000 to one person is a lot of money, to other people it's not.
Shall I use the knobby jargon or shall I use the straightforward speak? The knobby jargon would be I was modelling people.
Yes.
The straightforward speak would be I was seeing what other people were doing out there that was successful and I copied it.
Yeah, and with that point kind of Chris has mentioned, in terms of with that, research is a massive thing. We're talking about the plan, talking about not just kind of doing, a load of different tactics. Research and understand, whether that be competitors. Some of the best market ideas that I ever come up with, majority don't tend to be someone's kind of idea. It's always kind of inspiration of something else. Have a look at what other people are doing. If someone's successful in the space that you're looking to operate in, why not pick up the phone? Again, slightly different in terms of could you have a conversation with them, but why not look what they're doing on the social channels? Why not, download one of the guides to see the types of content they're using, that type of stuff. And again, if they're doing something very well, don't copy it to a point, but, use it as inspiration. And I think as Chris has mentioned there, if he could have looked at that and gone, well, actually £100, a lot of money, great. If you're on £100, the question then comes is he devaluing, what he's offering, and therefore does that give a different viewpoint of what people are doing? So again, understanding the types of audience that he's trying to go after, what you're trying to do, and obviously again looking at some of the competition, there's absolutely no kind of harm looking at what other people are doing, as long as you don't kind of go word for word. And sometimes don't get kind of, just because one person's doing it doesn't technically mean it's the right thing.
And also you need to stay focused to your original why. So I was using Facebook. And it would be really easy, and I see other people do it all the time, where they're just on Facebook and they're scrolling and they're looking and they're commenting on other people's things, and they're engaged on spending a lot of time on Facebook, but they're not using it for their business. They're not keeping to that strategy. If you were there to post, you come out, you get on with your day. If you go back into that post and people have commented and people have liked and you need to interact with them, you go back in, you interact with them, you come out, you get on with your day, because your day should be all about success, and the way that you use your social media should be all about documenting. Now, social media strategy, again, that could be its own podcast on its own. So apart from social media, what other ways would people market themselves or their business?
I think if you look in terms of if you are, we went back to the point at the start in terms of kind of different things you could do. If you are a confident person, why not look at kind of speaking opportunities? For me, if you're kind of trying to get yourself out there, and again, it depends on, how you want to go about it. people, if you want to do it for free, for example, and when you're starting out, you might think to yourself, do I want to do it for free? I want to spend a day there. Yeah. But actually, it depends on how you kind of value your time. I mean, for me, I know kind of one of the two things that I've done a little bit of volunteering on. I really wanted to work in sports marketing when I very first started out in marketing. One of the things I'd done was volunteered and worked at a non-league football club. Didn't get any money for it, but the learnings I took and some of the things I was able to do was really beneficial to me. Now, obviously, that is a balance. Don't just be giving your time away for free. But however, for your first kind of couple of speaking opportunities, why not ring some of these kind of property events, whether it could be a local event down at your local, I wouldn't say village hall, but it could be something quite, local city centre, and just said, I'm in property, I want to kind of get my voice out there a bit more, I've got some really good experience, is it a possible speaking slot? There's absolutely no harm in doing something like that, and, getting yourself out there, going to networking events, again, there's so many different events that kind of happen, and some of them may be a cost, and, there will be a couple of missteps you make along the way. But I think if you're looking to kind of push yourself out there, you need to get yourself in front of people. And I think there's stuff like the social ads and social media is brilliant, but you are kind of behind the screen. And obviously you can do your video content and other things that will push you, but, you need to get kind of in front of people. And, even just, again, ring up a couple of people who are operating in those space, look at what communities are there, join for example, a property, a property community. Again, there's be so many things out there that'll take a little bit of research, but get yourself in front of people rather than kind of stuck behind a screen.
You heard it, and so did I. John said that he was happy to work for free. Okay, so we'll continue that conversation afterwards.
Yeah, well, but back when I was younger, now I'm more.
You're still young. You're still young.
I'm not young.
You just shaved your hair off to look a little bit older, so you don't have to work for free anymore. And the other thing you need, this is for every single one of you listening out there, because I guarantee that over 50% of you are thinking it. Yeah, I will get out there. I will try to do a speaking slot. I will talk to people about the project once I've done it. That is a big, big mistake. If you're waiting until you've done your first project before you start speaking to people, you've lost a massive opportunity, because the majority of people will be interested in learning about the project while you're doing it, because you're actively engaged in it. And to be perfectly honest with you, there's jeopardy. There's jeopardy that you might balls it up, and it might all go completely wrong. And they'll want to follow you. They'll follow you all the way through that journey, because there's a chance that you might get it wrong, and they'll learn from it and from the mistakes that you made. But just imagine, either you can play that one of two ways. First of all, if you get it all right and you've done well, you've got amazing credibility. But if you do get it wrong and you've gone out there and you've told people what you're doing, if you do get it wrong, they still get to see the way that you deal with that problem, you overcome that hurdle, and you make a success out of it in the end. Again, giving you credibility. So it's really important that you don't wait, that you go out there and you do it straight away in order to start building your network right now.
Yeah, I think as Chris has mentioned kind of there, without kind of being too kind of cheesy, but a lot of people a lot of the time are more bothered about kind of the journey. And I think, you watch these programs on, Channel 4, whatever it be, or any other channels if anyone kind of sues us or anything. But, these kind of, the makeover shows, and a lot of the time, you are bothered what it looked like at the end, but, I'd say 50 minutes of that program is what happens along the way. And 95% of them tend to go, well, I had a budget of, 30 grand, and then, this didn't work, or the roof fell off, or whatever. And actually, that's the most interesting part, because what you're interested then is, well, how are they dealing with that? How can if they've done that, and that's how they got round it, I can do that if that problem ever kind of come up for me. So I think, as Chris has kind of said then, if you wait to kind of the end when everything's there and it's all singing or dancing, the probably likelihood is that you'll never actually do it.
The reveal on Grand Designs is the last 2 minutes of the programme.
Yeah, it doesn't really
Apart from
matter.
that, it's all about the journey of getting to that reveal, isn't it?
Yeah, and he spent too much cash, and and what there's loads of different ones. And to be honest with you, some of them are a bit mad, but ultimately you are bothered about the journey. I think for me, you want to see what's kind of happened along the way. And again, just get yourself out there. I think people will start to, whether it is social media, whether it is events, calls, people will probably come up and go, it can possibly be a conversation start. Oh, I seen you put something out there last week that you just, I don't know, you'd had an issue with the roof or something, how's it going? And it might seem stressful, you don't really want to talk about it because you've got a property with a leak coming through, or an issue with a tenant, whatever it be, but actually they're really interested to hear it, and it goes back to all that very first point at the start. You're not then boring then, because you've got something that people want to hear.
And you know what? We're still doing this stuff, right? I'm speaking at the Property Investor Show. We've got Pete, the head of support, who's speaking at the Property Investor Show. we're only doing this after 5 years of being alive as a business because it works, because it's really good. And you know how we started out? By doing smaller events, by doing exactly the same thing on a smaller scale locally. Yeah. So the reason that we're advocating this course of action is because it works. Yeah. So we've talked about why you should be doing it. We've talked about how you should be doing it. And now you feel a little bit uncomfortable because you realise that you might have to start speaking in front of people, or you might have to start engaging with people that you don't currently know. So now let's make you see why you should be doing it, or give you the motivation to be doing it by showing you what will happen if you don't do it. So if you don't market yourself effectively, what are the negatives? What are the repercussions of that?
Well, I think first and foremost, you've wasted your own time. I think, ultimately, I think it was, we've gone back to some of the points, and again, this is why I'm kind of a big believer in your plans and your strategy and setting out your objective at the start, because otherwise you just become a busy fool. You would then end up doing a load of stuff that actually thinking, I'm putting all this effort in, great, so you tick the box there. I think I've got my plan, brilliant, but I'm not really getting anywhere. So, what am I doing for? And all you've ended up doing is you've just probably been focused on the wrong areas, or you've not been doing it effectively, and therefore you've wasted your own time. And I think, outside of that is the cost. I think ultimately a lot of stuff in property always kind of comes down to money and that side of things. But ultimately, you can spend a lot of money not doing it well, And I've had first hand of this, not from a property perspective, from a marketing standpoint. And, particularly when it comes to stuff like events or kind of digital marketing, you spend a load, you've seen an advert on Facebook, or you've spoke to someone who does some kind of digital ads, an agency or a freelancer. I'm not slagging anyone off who works in digital, but,
So you're slagging people off. We're going to get sued because of what you said. This is definitely the last podcast that you're doing.
I don't think get sued, but, I've worked with a lot of kind of some really, really good digital people, and again, some of them are brilliant, but there's a lot of people out there that, and again, it's not just the same with digital, it's the same with property, and they'll promise you the earth, and next thing you spent, $2,000 a month, and next thing, you've got no leads, or you're not promoted, or whatever it be, and that can kind of add up quickly. If you've only got, a certain amount of budget and, a certain amount of time that you've kind of give to it, that can eat away quite quickly. So I think not doing it effectively, or not understanding what you're trying to do, the cost, the time side of it. And again, it kind of ties into the other side of things. If you're picking stuff like the wrong audience, again, the time side, you're just wasting your own time. You're not speaking to the right kind of people. And then ultimately, you just become forgetful because you're not actually hitting anyone with the message they want to hear. So all in all, you think, well, I don't really remember that person's name or whatever it be. So they're just some of the reasons. Again, I mean, you can have a list as long as you have. And to be honest with you, a lot of them are quite obvious, really. The cost, the time side of it. But ultimately, your business is not achieving what you want it to do. And if you're starting out in property, I'd imagine you've got objectives, aims, ambitions, and everyone's will be slightly different. One might be they want to make enough money to, I don't know, send the kids to university. Someone else might be, I want to retire when I'm 45, 50, whatever it be. And ultimately, the less effective you are with marketing yourself, the further away your kind of ambition or goal or whatever becomes. And I think I would always have that in mind when you're thinking about it.
Do I need to remind you to breathe? Have you breathed yet since the beginning of the podcast?
No, but I think I did say this before I started the podcast. Feel like this, as you can tell, I have quite a strong Scouse accent, and this is kind of my posh.
It's the tempo, mate. It's difficult to keep
it's
up.
What happens is when I get excited, I like to speak a lot. But yeah. This is actually the posh voice. This.
Wow. Okay. All right then. The other thing that I want to add to that, though, because I agree with everything that you've just said, the impacts of not marketing yourself effectively, the thing that I want to add to that is don't be afraid to fail, right? When you put that marketing plan together, and I actually brought in one of my original leaflets from like 8, 9, 10 years ago. I brought it into the office because I still had them in the garage. I've chucked them away now. Good. But I brought in one, and that's how bad it was. It was a really, really bad leaflet. But at the time, I wanted to test whether leaflets work. So I think I still remember this off the top of my head, 15,000 leaflets printed. And I got a local guy called Andy who would deliver them in bunches of 5, and it was 30 quid plus VAT for 1,000 delivered. That's what I spent on those leaflets. And do you know how many leads I've generated from those leaflets? You've seen the leaflet.
Based on the leaflet, I'd probably say none.
Absolutely right. Yeah, it was none because I wasn't hitting my audience in the right way. But at the same time as putting those leaflets out, I was doing direct mail campaigns as well to the same people. And those direct mail campaigns were very, very effective. So they worked really well. But I tested those leaflets. I tested them for, I think, 2 months. They didn't work, didn't get a single lead, shut it down, didn't try that again. and I only went with the ways that were successful. So when you're marketing yourself and you're putting that plan together, have a couple of options for yourself as to, and allow some of those things to fail if they don't produce the results. But you are moving forward from a position of knowing rather than guessing what the right thing to do is.
I think as well, there is a quote on this. I remember someone told me when I was young, it's like, 50% of marketing work, you just need to find out the 50% of it that actually does. And I think it's a bit more philosophical than that. But it's along those lines. It's right. I mean, I've tried loads of things that I've kind of done in the past. I've done all the right stuff and it's not worked. And I'm like, again, give it enough time to breathe, to test it, see if it works. But at the same time, don't kind of be afraid if it doesn't. I think, if you've got not you're out with it, but try the paid ads, try leaflet designs if you want to kind of go down the route of Chris, try events, try speaking stuff. Yeah. But ultimately review them, see what happens and see what they bring in, because otherwise you could think, actually that was a waste of time. When you've gone to look back in, you've got a number of leads or a number of good conversations. So again, having some sort of system to be able to track, what you've done. But again, without kind of going too kind of cheesy. Don't kind of be afraid to fail and get it wrong.
And this is what big business does. Sorry, we review performance every week.
Yeah,
don't we? We have a meeting every week. We review performance, and we make plans.
Sometimes there's failures.
Absolutely, there are.
Yeah.
But we're always learning. It's either a success or it's a learning opportunity, right? And we're always moving forward.
Yeah.
Okay, so finally, top tips for marketing yourself.
Research. I think, for me, any kind of good marketing should always be backed off evidence. So you got the research side of it, but when you're doing stuff, track what you're doing. Has it worked? What did I get back from it? Because, for example, I think sometimes people, for example, social media, and you think, I've got 3 likes on kind of Facebook off this post I've done. Brilliant, but what's it kind of brought in? Looking at the evidence. If you're doing, mail shots, for example, if you're doing, as Chris said, their direct mails or leaflets, try and get that evidence. Research at the start, find out what you're trying to do. Is it the right space for you? And then get evidence around that, because you're making big decisions that can have a massive impact on you and your business, and you've not got the evidence to back it up. Then ultimately there's probably a good chance that you're doing it based off opinion. And I think, especially within marketing, most things are opinion, and and everyone will always have a different idea on what they want to try and do. But if you've got evidence to back up what, whether you're in business with somebody else or your team, whatever it be, if you've got evidence there to back up what you're doing, it'll just give that a little bit more confidence to know, I'm doing the right thing. It may just take a little bit of time, or it isn't working, and this shows it isn't working. Let's scrap it.
Evidence and efficiency. Yeah.
I think for me, another kind of top tip is, you can't be kind of a jack of all trades, kind of, you can't be trying to do everything on your own. So, look at whether it is external kind of support, whether it is, other people. I'm not just saying from a marketing standpoint, but, there's loads of different kind of tools and software and kind of people out there who may be able to help you. You've got, if you're having, you're kind of speaking at an event, you're doing, for example, a speaking opportunity or whatever it be, you don't want to then be sat there trying to pull together leaflets. If, for example, Chris was in the same boat now when he was right, I want to test out some leaflets, but by the looks of it, I don't think design is his area of expertise.
Ouch.
So therefore, don't try to do it all on your own. Again, obviously, it does come into cost and whatnot, but there's a lot of kind of people out there. Both there's freelancers, there's some really good tools like you've got your Canva and stuff like that. I've used that in the past for kind of some personal stuff, and it's really, really good. So again, don't try to kind of be doing everything on your own, and that's not just with marketing, but speak to other people, learn from them. Again, it's not about kind of copying people's ideas. It's about learning from people.
I'm so bad at design that design on that leaflet was actually a template. I didn't even try and design it myself because it would have been even worse than
in all fairness, I was saying back in your day, but I'd imagine if you'd done these, what was it, 10 years ago?
About that.
See, I was in college then.
Let's move on quickly.
Software's moved on a lot now. But stuff like Canva's brilliant, and again, there's loads of different stuff. Even like stuff like your business cards, for example, that's a really small thing, but your business cards are almost, in some part, that first kind of introduction and kind of shot window to those conversations. And if you've got a really poor looking business card because you've tried to pull something together on, Word or PowerPoint, you can have the best speech in the world, but it's probably going to hinder you. So again, look around other things that can kind of help you do that. But again, comes all back to that kind of first point. have a plan, know what you're trying to do, know where you're trying to get, know what you're trying to achieve. And other things will follow, the tactics, the social media and other things. But if you've not got a plan, then for me, it's going to be tough.
That's brilliant, John. Thanks very much. Really appreciate you spending some time with us and sharing your expertise. So thanks for joining us today.
Brilliant, enjoyed it.
And thank you as well. Thanks for listening to the podcast today. Hopefully you'll have learned how to market yourself effectively. Comment below and tell us some of the mistakes that you've made when you've been marketing yourself. And, we'd love to join in that conversation and speak to you about it. But let us know about the marketing that you've done. Let us know about the mistakes that you've made. Remember, Source Franchise is here to help you. We are the first and only franchise of our kind, and we're much more than a training course. We're right behind you, supplying you with knowledge and property leads, and we can even offer funding through Source Capital. To find out more, send us an email or download our prospectus at sourcefranchise.co.